For the first time ever. 116 years Wales and South Africa have been playing each other, and never once has Cymru been given a moment like this to explode over. A win against South Africa in South Africa, and coming in the most dramatic circumstances possible. So here goes, part 2, here we go. How did Wales pull off their incredible victory out of nowhere, and what does it mean for the Springboks, for the series, headed into a decider on Saturday? Are they rubbish now? I mean, they lost to Wales. This was a fascinating victory to pull apart because Wales was simultaneously excellent and empty. A perfunctory performance in which enough pieces slotted together to allow them to pull an all-timer moment of fantastic play for Josh Adams to score in the corner. Because so much of what Wales did was not about themselves excelling but about neutering the Boks. When you're not a full 15 playing out your skin, as Wales did in both Test 1 and in the autumn, holding the Springboks trialist for the first time since Rassie and Jacques took over takes a little bit of luck and an incredible set of tactics. A lot of this began with the kicking. This is an unbelievable box by Kieran Hardy. Not only is it perfectly weighted for the exact hang time Cuthbert needs to get himself under it, just watch Hendrik Pollard, the way he has to adjust repeatedly to get himself under it. He takes steps backwards, then forwards, and he has to leap directly in the air, while Cuthbert is coming onto it clean with a run up and can jump so that he hits its apex here. Look how much higher he is in the air, meaning he can then claim it cleanly. Or here, Hardy wants Elias to just carry and feel so he's a better angle to kick with, but the raw box strength batters him backwards and leaves Wales 5 metres further back and not at all really in the position Hardy wanted to hang it from. And yet, it doesn't throw him off at all. This is once again inch perfect and second spot on. He gets significant enough distance on it that Wales regathering it feels like a huge net gain, yet Haaland has travelled some distance to reach it. Cuthbert, approaching in a straight line, just has to leap with one arm to throw the fullback's catch off, causing him to knock it on into Talupe Faletau's loving arms. Then, after an entire first half built on kicking off 9 and applying pressure on the Springboks, Wales made a major change at half-time. Not just bringing on Thomas Williams for Kieran Hardy, but tactically as well. The battle for the Welsh 9 shirt at the moment is fascinating because Williams and Gareth Davies are all-round better rugby players than Kieran Hardy, but neither is as good as scrum half. His core skills and game management are phenomenal, and Pivac decided that was not what the game needed apparently. After making it their primary strategy in the first half, Wales only kicked off 9 once in the entire second half. Here, just 2 minutes into the bastard. Instead, Wales tried to pressure with the ball, and it didn't not work, I guess. It was a clear attempt to catch South Africa off guard, and whilst I think it was frankly quite a daft tactical decision to trade something that was really working for something that might, I guess, they did manage it a handful of times. Because of how Wales have played for 2 games straight now, the Boks still here have a heavy backfield, and it allowed Wales to manipulate them a little. With the Welsh on the front foot here, they run a lovely backs move. Now, Wales ran exactly the same move, however, in both the 2019 semi-final here and then again last autumn. So you can wager Nienaber had his charges on red alert for exactly this, knowing this was coming. But Adams' offload allows them to keep changing the point of focus. Rees-Zammit then runs out of space, and we can see Tompkins shove his hand in the air to call for the ball, but Dewi Lake literally shoves him out of the, just pushes him out of the way. He then hits a thundering line off Zammo's shoulder and gets Wales going forward, and the Boks defence is baffled by the 1-2 punch of a move they were entirely expecting, followed by the rugby equivalent of freeform jazz where the piano punches you at the end. Anscombe invites Wainwright onto his first international carry. And the ball is fast enough to mean the Springbok fold is minimal. Defence condensed, Wales have their best chance of the game so far. Spotting the overlap, 2 Springboks react. Jordan Hendrickse shoots out a line to pressure Anscombe, and Farsi comes up to shoot the situation down from fullback, where he's been covering. However, Anscombe notices only one. His eyes are on Farsi and he shapes to kick, putting him behind him, but Hendrickse doesn't give him the time to do it. He takes it in, chance shut down. This was part of a frankly quite superb defensive display by Jaden Hendrickse, which is no doubt a major part of why he's displaced the most evil blonde we've seen since Alfred Hitchcock stopped making movies, Fav de Klerk, for this weekend's third test. And the guy is so extremely talented with the ball too. This is a superb kick, similar to those Hardy hung in the first half. Anscombe has to travel miles onto it, and it gives Etzebeth a chance to block his path and give Farsi a clean chance to regain the ball. The Welsh defence then discombobulates enough that the Boks can get outside them, creating probably their best try-scoring chance of the game. And it eventually results in the yellow card for Alan Wynne-Jones. But with Hendrickse, I do think there's a core of inexperience that Wales can exploit on Saturday. Here, the great chase by Rhys Sammet, covered in yesterday's video, has the Welsh defence on top, and they follow it through with a smashing shot on Dweber. Pollard decides enough of this nonsense once again. That's a Springbok game plan, that's just what they do. But Hendrikse is ripping the ball out before he's set deep and before any forward blockers are in place, and it means North can get up easily in his face. Pollard has no choice but to just take it in, and suddenly, without his 10 around to tell him, Hendrikse visibly has no idea what to do. He eventually calls him forwards and hangs the kick Pollard was intending, but fails to notice that Curtly Arendse, the winger, has come into the ruck, and hence, not only has the Welsh backfield had an extra 20 seconds to set up and cover the kick, he also has nobody in position to chase. He's just kicking without a chance to regather. Williams takes it easily with no competition, and after a quick phase, Hardy sets up to kick, and this one's just, again, superb. After leaving the ruck, Arendse has come up to join the line, meaning Pollard is alone in the backfield. Once again, he has to travel miles, but he's also faced with an absolutely brilliant chase by Josh Adams. Now, Adams is probably tied with Makazole Mapimpi as the best chaser of high balls in the world, but since he doesn't steal as many in the air, he gets underrated for it. But this is an absolutely phenomenal demonstration of why. Instead of chasing the ball or setting to make the tackle, Adams sees Pollard setting to jump for the ball and just plants his feet. He doesn't have to move. If Pollard is going to claim it, he's going to need to hurdle Adams, and there's no way he's getting enough height to do that. Yet, he's going to get close enough to the ball that South Africa captain can still knock it on into touch and then walk off unbelievably frustrated with himself, all because of Adams' brilliant subtle chase. It's a frustration that niggled the Springboks all game. After Wales collapses more, Hendrikse looks right to try and draw Wales round to make them alert on this side before catching them off guard by flashing left, but this throws his aim off entirely and he throws a horror pass. Haaland regathers and tries to take Rhys Sammet on the outside, which is kind of a fool's errand, and Wales can easily mark up until he lobs it into touch, making Liam Williams laugh. It's an opportunity blown by Hendrikse's skill set, letting down his instincts and ideas, which are first class, even under no pressure. And Wales were also able to create even more errors by just nudging that heat on a tiny bit. Tiny moments in games like this can have huge impacts, and we see it again here. South Africa on top and in the Welsh half with a 6-point lead. Wales catch Nokia slightly behind the gain line, but they clear out cleanly, and Pollard spots the Boks have numbers on the other side, and the cross kick is on. However, keep an eye on Josh Navidi here. He stands off and times his run. The moment Hendrikse bends down to pick up the ball, Navidi deliberately smashes into Matuno, sending his arse into Hendrikse's elbow. Hendrikse follows through on the pass though, but it's horribly off target. Pollard has to stretch to reach it and then turn around to avoid being charging, and it goes horribly. Not only does Pollard pull something and then have to go off and be replaced, but the ball ends up in the arms, once again the loving arms of Taulupe Faletau, and it begins the Welsh charge that eventually results in the position for the Josh Adams try. This game it changed entirely on one really sneaky, clever clear out here by Josh Navidi to throw Jaden Hendrikse and his pass off. And it wasn't the only breakdown smart seen by Cymru. The last 2 weeks we've seen an enormous emergence of the man known to the entire East Midlands by two simple words: Tommy Turnover. And whilst there's been a lot of Wales Online pages filled on every Welsh player in the Premiership, boy has Reffell lived up to the auto-generated hype. Some of his turnovers are just freakish. This was a great chop tackle by Elias, but Reffell just kind of slips his enormous frame into a tiny gap to make himself impossible to shift. Or here, watch how the ever-imperious Taulupe Faletau uses his loving arms to twist the Bok body into Reffell's path, giving him a prime opportunity to lock over the ball and win Wales the turnover. He's just a constant menace, an enormous threat to anything the Boks begin to build. And his knack for identifying which rucks to enter and which ones to leave alone is already, after just 2 caps, kind of absolutely elite. And yet, Tommy Reffell getting man of the match for the number of turnovers in the 22 he won probably demonstrates the fact this was a game that South Africa were on top of for about 70 out of the 80 minutes. And yet, that translated into almost nothing. I think there's a really strange mixed attitude currently coursing through the Springbok team. So, to highlight this, let's take a look at every decision made by the Springboks in the last 20 minutes of the game. There are essentially 4 of them made by the team or an individual, not as a result of Welsh pressure during that period. 2 of them are kind of immaterial. This by Pollard to kick down the line from penalty is an obvious call, and whilst this is an equally obvious and frankly need this penalty from Etzebeth, it's not really a problem. Even Etzebeth will probably try and physically assert himself about 30 times in the game, right? 20 of them will be legal, and the other 10 he usually gets caught at most twice. So it's overall a huge net benefit to your team if Etzebeth is being Etzebeth. You would take this one penalty, which Anscombe misses anyway, for the sake of the 29 other moments of brutality. But then we get into the two critical Springbok choices. With Welsh prop resources so sparse, Wayne Pivac found himself forced to call up the hee-haw guy from It's a Wonderful Life. But Sam Wainwright, as it turns out, is just as good a scrummager as he is plastic salesman in a heartwarming film from 70 years ago. However, the Springboks have built their reputation on a destructive, fearsome scrum, smashing and destroying everything put in front of them. And so, with 5 minutes left on the clock and a debutant on the tight head, South Africa head into the scrum not just wanting, but expecting a penalty. The 30 metres gained from it would could have sealed the game. However, Wales hold steady. Their scrum is solid. It's not moving. The Boks have no nudge at all. Now, this ball is at the back of the scrum and playable for Roos or Hendrickse for 7 whole seconds before the whistle goes. But instead of accepting the opposition could ever match them at scrum time and getting the ball out, just playing it away, the Springboks are so desperate to win a penalty that they cheat. Now, cheating happens at every single scrum, right? But debutant Umtuno isn't yet canny enough to conceal it, and it's super obvious. Wheeling himself round, not driving straight, trying to create the appearance of advantage. Gardner blows, Gareth Anscombe puts in a remarkable kick to put Wales only 5 metres out from the try line, and everything from there is folklore. But it doesn't change the fact, if the Springboks were less arrogant, dare I say, about their scrummage, if they accepted that maybe Wales could match them physically just once, they keep hold of the ball, they play it out, and they probably win the game. And yet, there was an even more crucial decision. 15 minutes earlier. Wales are completely here on the ropes. The defence caught napping for the first time in the game. Then, the most capped player of all time is sent to the sin bin. Their captain and talisman is off injured. The team are rattled and unfocused. Without commenting on whether watching the ball spell out of a ruck should be a yellow card, Wales certainly don't think so. And they pull maybe the most vigorous yellow card appeal I've seen, certainly in a very, very long time, if not ever. You've got 5 players coming here to complain. They're seeing this as injustice. They're pissed off to the point of almost deciding everything is futile. All game, they've been sneakily finding ways to stop the Springbok maul, but here they just collapsed this one illegally. And then their line speed is the slowest of any Bok attack over the 2 tests so far. They just kind of linger up. Wales have momentarily conceded to themselves that they're going to lose this game. The Springboks should have smelled blood, but instead, Handré Pollard takes the free. The Springboks on Saturday look so cataclysmically afraid of losing to Wales, a team that they, entirely understandable based on the last 2 years, view as kind of below them, that they started making decisions that didn't fit the situations in front of them. You can see it in the reactions in the first test as Willemse slots the penalty. This isn't delight, it's relief. This is a tour for the Boks where they're looking to build for the future, looking to kind of get their standards up, and it's more about avoiding the embarrassment of losing to Wales, who, let's be honest, are shit. Like, Wales are really shit. Like, Wales are properly shit, more than they are looking to beat a rival who always runs them close. Sometimes it comes through as conservatism, sometimes as overambition, but it was very much the Springboks' fear of losing that gave Wales the chance to win it. Because boy, did they win it. Wales might have produced one of the most 5 out of 10 performances to ever create an all-time great result, but this was packed with individual 9s and 10s. Reffell I've mentioned, but Dan Lydiate playing just over an hour, made almost twice as many tackles as the next closest player. Adam Beard and Will Rowlands really made the Boiler House their own, and the sheer injection of power added by Dewi Lake off the bench was enormous. Lake is perhaps the most South African style forward Wales have ever produced. He's like the result of a mad genetic experiment where someone infiltrated Razzie's mad laboratory where he grows all these world-class type 5 forwards, and instead of tooling him up to be a top-end athlete, designed a man who will never lose a fight in Wetherspoons. And unleashing that unique power on the Springboks themselves has been such a delight to watch as a Welsh person and a weapon for the team, both last week and this. But as well as his ferocious carrying, they're shit-out smarts as well. The Boks get on top of a maul here, and as it begins to splinter, they break off into a new one. Lake stands off for a moment. He waits for the referee to call, say more, but he doesn't. This is a breakaway, not yet a maul. So, Lake could come in round the side and tackle the ball carrier, but instead he goes for the dude straight in front of Marks, knowing this will technically be an obstruction by South Africa and hence buy Wales a penalty. The referee calls it, and Lake instantly hops up and gives the clapping equivalent of a shit-eating grin. This comes so soon after the Pollard 3 points and is a huge boost of momentum for Wales, and I think critical in pulling them out of the self-pity rut the yellow card caused. And it allowed them to work their way towards the eventual winning play. And bloody hell, what a play! What a play! Not to be sycophantic, right? But the last 3 years, I felt like kind of an arms race to design the best move that will throw off and exploit the very specific South African defence. Everyone's been trying to do it. And the one Wales pulled at the death here might just be the best of the lot. They initially set exactly as they did for the Lake try last week. Really long maul, which allows one of the second rows to then spin the Bok pack out the way. But Nokia smashes it down illegally and saves them from Wales repeating themselves. So, Reffell pops to the floor and Lake can begin the attack. Wales then begin to pick and go. And as he watches, Thomas Williams stands behind and Gareth Anscombe, stood off in the distance, knows exactly the play they're about to pull. He sends Tompkins in as a messenger. You can hear him on the ref mic shout one word, clearly a call of some kind, and encourages the forward to just keep walking inwards towards the posts. Wales continue picking and going, and then, when you watch it back, it all kind of makes sense. The Boks are dropping them on the advantage line every single time, right? Wales have tackled all game like their lives depend on it, but these aren't carries with the same ferocity. Instead, they're part of a plan. The whole way, Williams, Tompkins and Anscombe are communicating, and eventually Williams turns, evidently hearing. One more phase, and now we pull the trigger. That was a Kiwi accent attempt, it's not very good. One more phase, and now we pull the trigger, that's what he's trying to say. Williams folds in behind, and Navidi briefly turns to receive instruction too. Wales have Dewi Lake and Josh Navidi, possibly the two biggest carriers, lined up. And crucially, Tommy Reffell behind Lake to clear out, meaning it's a surprise when he pops it in Navidi. Just look at Ibonet's best face here, right? He sees Wales thinking this guy can smash through him as an insult. But instead, it's a trick. The Springbok defence is extremely distinctive. Forwards are super aggressive, the wingers fly in from out wide in order to apply pressure, and the fullback then kind of fills in for them out wide, whilst the 12 knits it all together. So, as Navidi swivels, he pops it behind to Thomas Williams, who draws Esterhazen, the 12, and hits Anscombe. Because of the sheer space him biting in creates, Creel kind of has to hang back a bit. And he also kind of has a Tompkins in his face, and he can't see what Anscombe's doing. Tompkins just kind of gets in his way. However, the aforementioned winger shooting in, right? If we look at the freeze frame before the ball comes out, Arendse has Anscombe lined up on the diagonal. He has a straight, clean path to him. But two things are getting in his way, right? One of the critical elements of the Springbok D is the width they set. The Boks spread wider on defence than almost any other team, and this allows the winger to get right out on the touchline, allowing to have a much better picture and angle to shoot him from. Every step outward from a Bok forward means the wing is that little bit wider, and therefore in that little bit better a position. By forcing the Springboks through so many pressurised phases, Wales have condensed that forward defence into a tiny area, meaning Arendse is about 5 metres in from where we'd want to be. And that's hugely significant because George North then runs this line. He's not a realistic option for us, he's never getting the ball, but he's exactly in the path Arendse was lining up if he wanted to reach Anscombe. The winger still gets there, but let's compare the path he was eyeing up before the ball to the path he eventually has to run. Warwick Holland has two options then, shooting on Williams or stay on his wing, and the extra seconds slowing Arendse down buys Anscombe means he can assess what they're doing and execute according to whatever Holland hasn't done, whichever of Williams or Adams he hasn't marked. This move is designed on the assumption the South African winger will come in and take himself out of the game, and every other detail is just about getting Anscombe as much time on the ball to throw the pass as possible. And there's another crucial element. Josh Adams' positioning is so deep it legally counts as poetry. Adams is an unbelievable technical finisher, whereas some players like Cheslin Kolbe or Marika Korombete have unbelievable instincts and unreal athletic abilities, and that helps them finish. Adams plays wing like he has a PhD in it, a scholar of every aspect of the position, and finishing was undoubtedly his major. If he starts flat, he has to take the ball standing still, and Holland finishes him off. But instead, the depth not only means he can catch the ball at near top pace, but Anscombe's really tricky pass only has to be about 80% accurate to the pinpoint, because Adams can adapt as he comes onto the ball. He can take it wherever the pass lands. And then, where some players might try to avoid contact and edge towards the touchline, or even try and step in field, Adams comes inwards ever so slightly. He initiates the contact with Holland before the fullback does, taking the contact on his own terms and bumping Holland onto his back, using momentum against him. Ball the whole time tucked in the arm away from Holland, tucked in his wrist so that he can dot down with no chance of it coming loose until well after he's grounded it. The professor of wing play has done it again. It's honestly, from a kind of like finishing nerd point of view, it's a gorgeous piece of work by Adams, and all that remains is the conversion.
Anscombe wedi taro ddi'n dda, wedi taro ddi'n berffeth, mae drosodd, a credwch yn ei byd o, mae Cymru ar y blaen.
Considering a few years ago, the question wasn't, Would Gareth Anscombe play Test rugby again? But would Gareth Anscombe walk again? Would he run again? Seeing him add one onto the list of the all-time great Welsh kicks at goal, joining the hallowed halls where his leg, the very same leg that he shattered several years ago, will live in infamy for so long as rugby is played in Wales, I genuinely think that's one of the most moving moments those 116 years of games have produced. A third test awaits. Time for these two teams to see if they can produce one more moment worthy of those many, many years. Thank you for watching that. This brings us to the end of... I'm sorry we couldn't get to any of the other games. We couldn't get to England's winning of Australia. Ireland, I think they beat the All Blacks.
They did, but it took us a long time to look at Wales winning.
Yeah, I mean, the plan was initially to kind of cover two tests in one video, and then it just got out of hand, and we had kind of 40 minutes of stuff, hence the 40 minutes you've seen. So that's been this week, and we'll hopefully try and cover England and Australia, and maybe Argentina and Scotland, as well as definitely Italy, Georgia. We're going to look at down the line, as kind of a deeper dive into Georgia. There's loads of stuff going on here at Squidge Towers. I hope you're having a lovely day, and we'll see you again very soon.
Have a nice weekend.
Rugby.
Yeehaw! Uh-oh, Sam Wainwright. How are you? When'd you get here?
Oh, this afternoon. I thought I'd give the kids a treat.
Old college graduate now.
Yeah, old Joe College Wainwright to call me.